The street was quiet that morning, filled with the soft hum of the city waking up. The air smelled like rain and coffee, and a thin light touched the windows of old buildings. At the end of the narrow street, between a bakery and a flower shop, there was a small bookshop. Its sign was simple. The bookshop corner, written in faded gold letters that looked as if they had been there for 100 years. The window was full of books, some new, bright and smooth, others old, their spines soft and bent. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars behind the glass. A small lamp glowed warmly, giving the place a feeling of safety, as if time moved slower there. When the door opened, a small bell rang, not loudly, but with a gentle, happy sound inside. The air was full of the smell of paper, old wood, and roasted coffee from the small counter near the back. The light was soft, golden, falling through dusty windows and touching the shelves. It felt like stepping into another world, one made of silence and words. The shelves were tall and full, standing close together, forming small paths like tiny streets of their own. Some shelves leaned slightly as if tired, but still proud to hold so many stories. Books of all colors, sizes, and ages were stacked everywhere. Some open, some hidden behind others. There were travel books, poems, old novels, cookbooks with spots of flour on the pages, and children's books with bright pictures fading from time. The sound of rain began softly outside. It tapped on the roof and windows, turning the quiet of the bookshop even softer, deeper. The smell of wet air mixed with the scent of paper and made everything feel alive, like the shop itself was breathing. There was no one else inside, only the small noise of pages moving when the wind from the open door touched them. Somewhere behind the counter, an old radio whispered slow jazz music, its voice gentle and warm, blending with the rain. Every corner of the shop had something to look at. There were little notes on the shelves, handwritten signs that said books for dreaming. Travel far without leaving your chair. Old friends waiting for new hands. The words felt kind, almost like they were written by someone who loved every book here deeply. A small round table stood by the window, with 2 chairs and a cup of coffee half finished. The steam had faded, but the smell still lingered. Rich and sweet on the table lay an open notebook, filled with neat handwriting, a few sketches, and a pressed leaf between the pages. It felt like someone had just left for a moment, maybe to the back room, maybe into a dream. Moving through the aisles, fingers brushed the spines of the books. Smooth, rough, cracked, velvet, cold, warm, each one felt different, like every story had its own heartbeat. One book stood out, small, covered in dark green cloth, its title written in gold letters almost gone with time. It sat slightly out of place, as if waiting to be found. The book was light, but when opened it felt full. The pages were yellow, their edges soft. There was a smell, that deep, sweet scent of time, like autumn leaves, old letters and rain. The first page had a name written in ink, Clara, 1927. The handwriting was elegant, thin, and patient. Reading the first few lines, it was clear the story was simple, about a woman who lived by the sea, collecting shells and writing letters she never sent. The sentences were quiet and thoughtful, as if written not for others, but for the heart itself. Outside, the rain grew stronger. The world beyond the shop blurred behind drops on the window inside. The light stayed golden, warm still. It felt safe, like being wrapped in a soft blanket of silence. The pages turned slowly, each paragraph carried a rhythm that matched the sound of the rain. Sometimes, the words spoke about memory, sometimes about waiting. The woman in the story wrote about how the sea kept secrets and how every wave carried something that once was lost. Hours could have passed, but it didn't matter. Time had no meaning here. The world outside was far away, The only reality was the soft paper under the hands, the sound of pages and the warm smell of coffee still floating in the air. Somewhere behind a clock ticked, not loud but steady. It marked the passing of something gentle. The shelves creaked now and then, as if the books were whispering among themselves. The light through the window dimmed slightly as clouds moved over the city. The book was more than a story. It was like a small door to another life. Every line was full of care, of quiet love. The words felt alive, like they remembered something from long ago, something important, but not urgent, something soft and true. At the back of the shop, next to a stack of newspapers and postcards, there was a small old armchair. Its fabric was faded, a bit torn, but it looked comfortable, as if it had listened to hundreds of readers before. Sitting down there felt natural, like joining a long tradition of peaceful moments. The book rested on the lap. The rain's rhythm became slower, softer again. Outside, the street was empty except for a single cat walking carefully under the awning. The world seemed smaller, but kinder. In that moment, everything felt connected. The rain, the paper, the light, the quiet jazz, even the air carried a sense of belonging, like the whole shop was a heart beating slowly, steadily. Reading on, the story spoke about evenings by the window, about the sound of the sea at night, about keeping letters in a box just to read them years later. It spoke about finding beauty in small things, in the way sunlight touches an empty cup, or how dust dances in air when the day is ending. The words felt familiar, almost like memories. Maybe because peace looks the same everywhere, in a seaside home or in a small bookshop corner. As the rain softened, the light inside the bookshop began to change. It grew warmer, deeper, as if the walls themselves had soaked in the quiet. Dust floated lazily in the golden air. The pages of the green book turned gently, one after another, as if the story wanted to tell itself without hurry. The woman in the story, Clara, wrote about waiting for letters that never came. She described how she would walk to the post office each morning, passing the same fig tree, the same small bakery smelling of warm bread. She spoke about how she never stopped believing that one day a letter would arrive, not to answer her words, but to tell her that someone, somewhere, had understood them. Her words were not sad. They were soft, full of hope that lived quietly. She wrote about kindness, about how it can hide in small things. A smile, a touch, a flower left at a door. She wrote about how the sea taught her to let go and still love what leaves. The pages seemed to breathe with meaning, and in the quiet of the bookshop, those words became part of the air. They felt like whispers from another time, crossing years and oceans just to reach this moment. The sound of the door opening broke the silence for a second. The bell rang gently, letting in a cool breath of air. Then it closed again, and the quiet returned. Somewhere in the back room, a kettle began to sing. The smell of coffee grew stronger, mixing with the scent of rain. On the shelf above the chair stood a small wooden box. It looked old, the kind that once held letters or postcards. Its lid was slightly open, and inside there were small pieces of paper. Some had quotes written on them, others only words like hope, home, silence, warmth. They looked like pieces of someone's thoughts left behind for others to find. Taking one out, the handwriting was soft, curved, patient. The paper said, "Every quiet place is a door to peace." It matched perfectly with the feeling in the air. The world outside might still be busy and loud, but here, Inside the small bookshop, everything was still and kind. The book waited patiently to be read again. The pages felt lighter now, as if they were smiling. Each word seemed to glow a little in the golden light. The story spoke of evenings by the fireplace, of reading while listening to the sea. It spoke of how books can hold time, how each one carries not only its story, but also the hearts of those who read it. Clara's words felt close, like a conversation between souls who had never met, but somehow understood each other completely. Outside, the rain stopped. The sky cleared slowly, showing a soft, pale blue drops on the window, caught the sunlight and turned into little sparks. The street was empty, quiet again. The smell of wet stone and coffee mixed with the warmth of the bookshop. The radio hummed gently, a tune played by a saxophone, low and slow. It fit the moment perfectly, like a soundtrack written for it. Looking around, every part of the shop seemed alive. The books leaning on each other like friends. The little lamp glowing softly. The coffee cup leaving a ring on the wooden table. There was a feeling that everything here had a story. Even the scratches on the counter. Even the dust on the shelves.
Time passed, but it was impossible to know how much. Maybe an hour, maybe 3. The book was almost finished now. The last chapter spoke about finding peace in simple things. A morning walk, a letter written by hand, the way sunlight moves across a floor. When the final page turned, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a gentle pause, like the story had simply become part of the quiet around. The book closed softly. The gold letters on its cover looked almost new in the light. It was as if the book had been waiting for this, to be opened again, to be remembered, to breathe. The small note inside the cover was found only then. It said, "For whoever finds this, may you always have a corner where stories wait for you." There was no signature, only a small drawing of a shell. A slow smile spread the words, felt warm, like a gift left by someone kind. Maybe Clara had been real after all. Maybe someone once held this same book on a rainy day and felt the same peace. The shop seemed to listen quietly. The smell of coffee and old pages filled the air again outside. The sky had turned golden after the rain. Light spilled through the windows, falling in long, soft lines across the shelves. On the counter, a cat had appeared, gray and calm, curled into a small circle, sleeping beside a stack of postcards. It looked as if it belonged to the shop, another quiet guardian of stories. Its tail moved slowly with its breathing. Walking to the window, the street outside looked gentle and new. The bakery next door had placed fresh loaves in the window, and the flower shop owner was arranging white lilies in a vase. The world had that clean, soft look it gets after rain. Everything fresh, every color brighter. The bell rang again softly as the door opened. The sound mixed with the warm air and light. The street smelled of sugar and books and something else. Peace. Maybe. Before leaving, the green book was placed carefully back on its shelf, in the same small space where it had waited before. But now it didn't feel lonely. It felt full. The fingers brushed its cover one last time, as if saying thank you. As the door closed, the bell sang its little tune again, and the quiet returned. The shopkeeper's voice could be heard faintly in the back, humming along with the radio. Outside, the air was cool and bright.
The sound of the city came back slowly. Footsteps, a laugh, a bicycle bell. But something had changed. The world seemed lighter, softer. Walking away, there was still the feeling of that golden light inside. The peace of paper and rain, the warmth of words and quiet spaces. The street curved gently, disappearing into the heart of the city. Yet, even as it did, the memory of the bookshop corner stayed close. The smell of old paper, the taste of coffee, the calm sound of rain against the window, the touch of the small green book. It wasn't just a place anymore. It was a feeling, a corner in the heart where time slows down and everything becomes gentle again. And somewhere behind the little bookshop stood quietly, holding its stories, waiting for the next person to open its door and find their own piece of peace inside.